And there's 3 principles of the slight edge that I want to share with you. But before I share those 3 principles, let me tell one story I think I've only told once in public before. I'm anxious to tell you, though, tonight. When I was a young boy, I wandered around a motivational speaking company, and a man by the name of Bob Moawad tried to rub off some of his wisdom and ideas as a teenager. I tried to hang around as many successful motivational speakers as I could. When Bob saw, after teaching 1 million people, I think 8 million people over his time, found that he had a rare form of cancer. He was doing fine. But he called me one day after If You Think You Can came out, because If You Think You Can, in the first year, became a national bestseller. Almost sold 100,000 copies in 2005. And he called me up one day and he says, you know, I've tried to write a book for a lot of years. I've hired 5 ghostwriters, but I fired every one of them. He goes, looking at the success you have and knowing you, TJ, I think we should co-author a book together. I said, I would love to. I honor you, Bob. So let's do it. And we started to write. Every Wednesday I would go to his house or to his office. We'd sit down and write about the ideas that we had. It was wonderful. Into that time that we were writing, though, about 2 weeks, complications with the rare form of cancer. His lungs collapsed. He stopped breathing. He went into a coma. For weeks he laid in the hospital in a coma. I thought, oh, Bob. I didn't care about the book. Cared about Bob. It was on hold at this point. That's fine, no problem. I went to visit him at the hospital, gave him my love, and then 2 weeks later, he decided that he probably wasn't going to make it, and that they were going to pull the plug. The family decided it was in his will. That's what they wanted. So I went back to the hospital to give him my love, rub his hand, feel the love, if you will. And I went home. The next morning they pulled the plug, and you wouldn't believe it. He started breathing on his own. 3 days later, I get this phone call. TJ, this is Bob. I thought, am I hearing things? Have I gone crazy? He said, TJ, let's finish this book. I finally understood what was going on. I said, I'll be right over. He says, come over on Wednesday, let's keep working. Remember, there was a book written about Tuesdays with Morrie. For me, it was Wednesdays with Bob. For 3 months, we sat next to him. I went to his house. I wasn't prepared for this, though. His body was really challenged at that point. He couldn't move. He was bedridden 24 hours a day with a hospital bed facing the sliding glass window in his home toward this fountain, water fountain that was in the backyard. And I would sit next to him. His mind was as sharp as a whistle, but his body was deteriorating. I sat next to him and we'd talk about principles and we would laugh and we would tell stories that nobody had ever heard before. And I would write and I would take that information back to my office and clean it up and write it, and I recorded all those sessions. And then sometimes he would say, TJ, instead of talking about the principles, will you just put me in the wheelchair, wheel me around the neighborhood so I can get some fresh air? And he would put on his baseball cap. It was a University of Washington baseball cap. And I'd push him around, and we'd go back, and I'd go home. But after 3 months of doing this, we finally got to the tail end. He was scheduled to speak at Hill Air Force Base. He couldn't go, obviously, so Hill had me come. The Air Force had me come to speak in his place. He said, would you give me your manuscript so I can review it when you come back? I'll sign off on it. We'll send it to the press. I said, great. So I dropped it off at his house. I went to the airport. I went and spoke at Hill Air Force Base. I got on the plane. I came back. He said, stop by the house. I stopped by the house. He handed it to me. He said, I only have one correction. I said, great. This thing is going to press. And we put everything in line to go to press, not knowing how much longer he would be around. Sent it to press. A couple weeks later, on the following Friday, when he got news that it had been sent to the publisher and to the printer, he passed away. Never saw the book in the physical form. I'm sure he's seen it now, and I think he would be proud now. That's a little bit of immortality if you listen to one of the videos that I posted about journal writing. One form of immortality is that your words will live on past your physical life.